Hey everybody, welcome back to My Ambition.
Hi guys, I'm Alex.
And this is Tiffany.
Oh, that was less chaotic than normal. We've just prepared our guest for our chaotic intros, and that was quite normal for us, I think.
We're trying to mellow a bit.
Okay. Well, without further ado, we're going to welcome our guest today. I'm really excited about this. We've got Michelle Minnikin with us, and basically I went to an amazing training session she did, and I begged her to come on the podcast. So hi, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
So Michelle is the author of the really, really fabulous Good Girl Deprogramming that she's going to tell us a bit about. And she's also a podcast host of Inspiration North. So she's going to teach us a thing or two about podcasting. She's a chartered organizational psychologist and a coach, does recruitment coaching and personal development. And she's also a fellow ADHD and a mum. So I begged her to come on the podcast. She's got a mission to help women deprogram themselves, and she's going to tell you what that means in a minute, from good girl conditioning and start their own rebellions to build a world that works for everyone. And we're going to stick some links to our book into our show notes. But hi, Michelle.
Hello.
That's an introduction and a half, isn't it? I'm like, oh, she sounds good.
I want to be
You definitely do. Yeah. Yeah, welcome. So we're really pleased to have you on. As I said, I attended some really fabulous and eye-opening training with you about to shed our good girl programming, deprogram ourselves. Do you want to tell people a bit more about it, a bit of your backstory and how you came up with the idea? Because I think it's super revolutionary.
This is the point I asked. How long have you got? Have you
all day.
All the day. So effectively, yeah. I grew up as the quintessential good girl. My dad was in the army, so we traveled around a bit. So I was always the sort of the random new girl at school. So I learned very quickly just to be nice and try and get people to like you. So my go-to method for that was people pleasing. Of course it was.
Of course.
Yes. And so as a child, teenager, adult, people pleasing was my go-to personality type almost. And I grew up in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, so 7 years of my life it wasn't exactly dodging bombs from the IRA, but it felt like it as a child. So I always wondered why people did things, and why people are conditioned to hate each other, and all of the sort of the cult and serial killer stuff I was quite interested in as well, which is made for really weird reading as a teenager. But I of course took a psychology degree, really enjoyed it, thought I was going to be a criminal psychologist like like the guys out of Criminal Minds, but turns out we don't have that in the UK. And I was actually at university before I figured that one out, so decided to go down the organizational psychology route and did my master's, because that is the place where you can almost change more people. So that's why I did that. And I also knew that organizational psychologist was the psychologists with the most money as well. So that was like, interesting.
Nice, good tactic.
Yes. So I was like, clinical, you pretty much are stuck in the NHS. The forensic psychologists are in the prison service, and you're limited about career progression, and you have to work in these big bureaucratic organizations. And I always wanted to work for myself, interestingly. So I launched into my career, and throughout my career, and I had to stay in the Northeast, so it was a weird and wonderful career in personal development, long-term unemployed people, getting them into work. And then I was a recruitment manager within a couple of construction companies and an IT company, and I never quite lived up to my potential. I had all of the signs and symptoms of ADHD and absolutely no clue, despite being a psychologist, about that being kind of one of the answers to my problems. It wasn't until I ended up being sacked and set up my own business in 2016, and then I was invited in 2020 to come along to a International Women's Day event at the House of Lords, which was really fancy. So if you can remember, March 2020 was the beginning of the pandemic, but we were still kind of pretending it wasn't happening, and we were allowed to meet, but we weren't allowed to hug.
Oh yeah.
So I was there. I met a wonderful lady called Anna Price, who was telling everybody about her ADHD diagnosis, and that was almost light bulb number one. So having that information, getting myself diagnosed, and dealing with the absolute fury of that diagnosis, I was furious.
I'm familiar with these feelings.
Because what would life have looked like if we'd had this information sooner, and we're able to put adjustments in and scaffolding in to help us deal with a very weird and wonderful world for us. And so my coach and I were working through that, and I was doing some additional coaching training, and at the same time, and it was like we got to the point where, right, so I know what the Michelle is, and I kind of understand the ADHD thing, but there was still something here that I just didn't know what it was. It was that still that people pleasing, the over preparing, over explaining, over apologizing, perfectionistic thing that's made me defer to authority and be like scared of all sorts of random crap. And it wasn't until I was doing my coaching training, one of my many coaching trainings, that I heard the coach basically say, "Oh, that's good girl conditioning," just to somebody else. It wasn't even to me. And my brain just went, "That's it. That is it." So I was like, I have this information and I know what it is. So I like a good girl, traipsed back to my coach and said, "I have good girl conditioning." And she's like, "Oh yes, that explains a lot." And at the same time was invited to do a women's empowerment conference in America. And I was like, I want to do something about this good girl conditioning. And they were like, "Great. How do we get conditioned?" And I was like, aha, I don't know that information. I don't have any idea. So I went off to do a bit of research, and my weird interest in cults and serial killers actually came in really handy, because I was like, how are people conditioned into cults? And it's sort of similar to how we're conditioned into the patriarchy. And oh, sorry, there was a weird noise outside. ADHD in action. And I found this chap who is called Albert Biderman. So in the 1950s, during the Korean War, the US military powers that be were really, really devastated because so many prisoners of war, Americans, were defecting to China. And they thought there was this magical brainwashing machine that the Chinese had, because this was the kind of McCarthy hysteria around communism.
And essentially then they wanted it as well, the brainwashing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Of course. Could you imagine if you had a magical mystery brainwashing machine? Life would be easier. But no, they don't. They didn't. Albert, a social scientist, and his team found a raft of tools of coercive control that they were able to successfully utilize in order to convert, Americans into communists. And he wrote this tool down, published it, etc. I then, sort of 50 or 60 years later, came across it, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting. This is interesting information." Printed it off, and I thought I'd get my pens out and scribble all over it. Within half an hour, I went from "this is interesting information" to "oh my goodness, this is devastating information," because I had listed all the ways that these tactics were used on women to keep us under control, to keep us behaving, to keep us nice, to keep us sharing, be kind, deferential, submissive. And I was like, "Oh, this is now heavy stuff." It went from, "oh, this is interesting," to, "oh wow, this is a lot."
They do say ignorance is bliss, don't they?
Pardon?
They do say ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is absolute bliss. And so I did the talk, it went down really well, and then it just wouldn't go away. So I was like, right, I'm gonna have to write the bloody book. This was during the pandemic. 2 years of my life, lots of emotional eating, because wow. Literally went through each chapter. I used myself as a bit of a guinea pig. And what was really interesting, I didn't want this to be a book that's, oh look, there's this thing called good girl conditioning, so let's get rid of that by putting Michelle's conditioning on top of you, because that is ridiculous. So it's all about recognizing it and asking yourself questions to deprogram yourself. It's like the America Ferrera speech in the Barbie movie. Because what works for me won't work for you. So I'm not going to even try and tell you what to do, because that's a whole part of it. We need to understand and trust ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I love what you're saying about the book would not go away, because I think a lot of times people think like maybe finding purpose or finding their thing, it's this logical, sit down and plot it. But I love that you spoke about kind of something almost chasing you down. It sounds like the book was chasing you down. And we had another person on the podcast, Maxine Waneri, also said a similar thing. So I'd love to explore that in terms of just
the book writing you.
That was just as like, I have to do this, or if I don't do, talk us through about that sort of thought process.
Yeah. So you come across Elizabeth Gilbert.
Eat, Pray. Okay.
Yeah, Eat, Pray, Love. She also wrote a book called Big Magic, and I'd listened to that years ago. And it's all about, there are all of these ideas are floating around like fairies in the air.
Yes.
And those ideas attach themselves to you. You don't choose them. They're just delivered from the universe like fairies. And yeah, it was literally that. I also, as a massive aside, have an idea for a novel. Okay. But that's been kind of percolating for years. And
you heard it here first.
Yes. I was like, I don't have time to write a bloody novel. I'm just gonna have to wait. It's just gonna have to stay. And if somebody else writes it, then that's fine. But so yeah, there's it just attached itself to me. And as much as I fought against it, I did fight against it, because it's a big responsibility putting this information out into the world. But it's also big. It would be a massive, dodge of responsibility if I didn't.
Yes.
So it's almost like, look what I did. And now we just need to gather the women, help us, go through it all.
Yeah. And what has happened since, would you say, in terms of putting that out in public and that journey of really communicating it to other women?
So if I thought the book writing process was hard, it's like, oh yes, you're able to sort of sit and scroll away on your own and do that. It's the getting it out into the world has been, it's literally like, and I called my publishers my book midwives. It is literally like having a baby and pushing it out into the world. Wow. Because you almost, you leave the hospital with your baby, and it's like, and now you're responsible for it. And you can get nannies in to help, and you can get I've taken the metaphor as far as it's going to go, but you can it's a slog. So lots of talking to people, lots of podcasts, and because I've had links within organizations, so for my work on sort of selection process redesign and hiring massive roles for various public sector jobs, I was able to say, well, I've done all of this work for you, so do you fancy having a go at my workshop? And I put a big thing out saying, it's International Women's Day coming up. Do you want to book in? And that's how Alex's organization found me and booked me for that. So it has been an interesting thing. And do you remember the Jim Carrey movie, Yes Man?
Not that one.
No, he just had to say yes to everything. It's really, it's quite I've explained the entire plot.
In a sentence.
Saying yes to things.
We'll add a summary to the notes.
So yeah, you don't need to read it. You don't have to watch the film now.
So basically, you are Jim Carrey, and you're just saying yes to everything that comes along.
Yes. Shonda Rhimes wrote a book about it as well, but yes. Just say yes.
Oh yeah.
And what about the stories you're hearing from women as you do these workshops? That I'm sure that's really interesting, but it feels to me like it might be quite burdensome to kind of hear and maybe depressing to hear some of the stories.
Oh, so there's some really, really amazing stories of women who have read the book and made some small changes. So it's ultimately, of course, I want to change the world and change the lives of women, because as soon as we're okay, then I think most other people, because there's lots of research recently about the quality of somebody's childhood is all about the quality of happiness that the mother has. So if we could sort the mothers out, like domino effect.
Love that.
So yeah, some of the stories that people tell me, it's almost like the Everyday Sexism Project, the Laura Bates's online thing, and just the stories that people bring up about how they've been treated and how they've been belittled and humiliated and threatened and abused and exploited in organizations. It's like wow. And it's
like stuff that pregnant and then screwed are doing at the moment as well. Yeah, very like that.
Absolutely.
Without going into obviously the book, because we will again add that to some notes. Go buy the book. Without going into the detail and giving out the sauce, could you give us like just a couple of ideas or principles that represent that programming? Or
so the sort of the two that I personally, well, three. There's three of them. There's 9 different 9 different chapters. I can't remember at this point. I'm slightly traumatized. I've just uploaded the entire book onto the Audible platform, so that's coming out this month. There's another one. The Audible's coming out this month.
I'll be there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people who listen to the podcast love an Audible because mum's time. You can do it while you're doing something else.
Yes. So the 3 tools of coercive control that like impact me personally the most is the top one is about strategic exhaustion. So all the different ways that we're tired. So most of us have to work. We don't have, it's not even a choice, is it? Most of us have to work because we can't live on one salary in this country, and like our grandparents could. We can't. So even if we're working because we love our job and we're working because we have to work, it's still the same. We are more likely to have to do most of the care work at home. Even if, I know this is a mambition podcast, but even if we don't have children, we are relied on to do more caring. So looking after neighbours, relatives, friends, and all of that care work, as well as the care work that we're tasked with in work. So those non-promotable tasks that we just happen to pick up, like making sure that people are okay, and organising birthday parties or leaving drinks, or making sure there's enough bloody milk in the fridge at work. All of that, all of the stuff that's low value but has to happen because there's some sort of office mother that has to take care of all that
wow.
stuff.
Yeah.
And it's on top of our jobs.
Wow.
So there's that, and then all of the pressures to look a certain way. So the fact that every couple of years, what is beautiful changes. So even if you're 6 foot goddess, the next month that the world could be valuing teeny tiny petite women. It's just like all of the different ways that all of us are made by patriarchy and capitalism to feel bad about ourselves, so we buy stuff. So it's like the lack of sleep we get, and just all of the things.
Yeah, amen to the lack of sleep.
Yeah, it's torture. It is actually torture. Amnesty International called all of these things torture. Obviously not in a woman context, but applied to humans, it's torture. So the next one is the is the social isolation. So I don't know about you both, but I was raised to be a fiercely independent person who didn't need anybody for nothing, and having sort of a weird competitiveness. So it's drummed into us from a very early age that we almost have to have frenemies and be competing with other women, because the resources for, you know, men and jobs and stuff is so finite, which is absolute nonsense. So we put on this weird sort of mask with other women and we can't be real. So I think, did you come across the unmumsy mum? So when I had my little boy, and he was born in 2009, there was all these books about how you should do everything. So this is how you should feed your child, and this is how you should be, you know, how all of the ways that you should make your child sleep, and all of the stupid routines and all of this stuff. And I didn't even know, it was ridiculous. I thought breastfeeding would be a doddle, because nobody told me that breastfeeding is like absolute torture.
I've heard that from so many people.
Nobody told me. If we tell, and I felt like such a failure.
I can relate to this, yeah.
And people just, why don't they tell us? Why don't they say, you know, it sucks, keep going, or go and get some help from like breastfeeding coaches?
Or get a bottle if it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah. Bed is best.
I mean, I think that part of this, and it's part of why people don't really tell you like the realities of childbirth, you've got to really go looking for it and stuff like that. I think and when I say they, I think society think if we know the real truth about it, that we'll just be like, nope, no more babies. And I genuinely think that's the reason. And they're like, oh no, if they know what it's going to be like, no, but nobody would choose to do this. But people who've already had children choose to have another one. So I don't think that follows.
No, it's bonkers. I was absolutely terrified of childbirth to the point where if I, you know, if I was able to sort of be really objective about it, I probably because of my fears, caused having to have an emergency C-section, because it was, the whole thing was terrifying. It's not how, you know, it's not how we were designed to give birth. We shouldn't be giving birth on our backs in a hospital surrounded by men. We should be in like somewhere dark and cozy and warm and lovely, full of love, and, you know, with other women. And it's like, but no, it's just nuts. So, and yeah, I was going through divorce, and my ex-husband was there, because that's completely conducive to releasing the oxytocin needed.
Yeah, that's not going to be stressful at all.
Yeah.
No, but even me being a people pleaser.
Yeah,
I don't regret it now because we're good friends, but it did obviously traumatized him for life when we got, you know, wheeled to the to surgery to get the child removed. But he loves that story, the child. Like, you weren't born, you were just removed.
Oh dear, sorry, you're talking about this is just making me think about. So I had to have an episiotomy, and afterwards, I know they've got to ask you for consent for stuff, but they said to me, are we okay to like sew you back up now? And I was like, I was a bit out of it, and I said to Eddie, what's the other option? Just leave it like that? Are you mad? I was like, just get on with it, please.
Because I don't want to know the details. But no, it's nuts. And then the third one is this threats. So you see it everywhere you look. Anytime a woman puts her head above the parapet, she gets annihilated. We are held to such higher standards as women that I talk about, this is not very scientific, and this has not been, you know, this is not psychology, but I talk about the witch wound a lot.
Okay.
We just look through history. All of the women that were different or tried to do other things, they were literally burnt at the stake. And we carry that in our DNA, that if we step outside of the normal, if we go against our family's wishes, and there is a biological reason, because in cave people days, if we left the tribe, we'd probably end up dead, because we did actually need to cooperate. But today, I think we can survive if we're not in the tribe, or we find a different tribe. And just all of the ways that, you know, I am getting to a certain age now, and I have put a bit of weight on, and, you know, we've had a pandemic and I've written a book and it was all tragically emotionally eat stuff. But literally put a post on TikTok and somebody's like, well, you clearly need to go to the gym. I'm like, oh wow. It's like,
What?
That's crazy.
yep.
The fact that people feel okay to have an opinion on that, yeah. And not even just keep it in their heads, to actually say it. Wild.
Yeah, but obviously it's the problem with the internet. It's absolutely brutal, and it's a way of, you're able to pull people down without having any consequences, because people hide behind anonymity. I can't say that word. And it just gives people free rein to be absolutely vile humans. And you see it as soon as female politicians, even my dad was sending me jokes about Angela Rayner, and like, literally, I love her so much.
Yeah.
And and
there's been
her
a lot
story's
of
amazing.
There's been a lot of comments about her green suit that she wore.
All it made me do was look up the company, because I was like, I love that.
I know. I was like, oh, where are shoes from?
It's funny how that was the first thing. Like, what does a suit have to do with? Oh, why is she wearing an expensive suit? I thought she was from a council estate. Who cares? She needs to look nice. And someone made a comment about maybe it's from Vinted.
And also, as though like your past should define where you are now. So because you grew up in a council estate, you're never allowed to have nice things, even when you have money, because that makes you some sort of class traitor. It's just, ridiculous.
It's bonkers. And, when all of the stuff that bloody Diane Abbott has to deal with, and it's just ridiculous. And Jess Phillips as well in Birmingham, like, wow. So I cried a lot this week.
But then I think seeing the cabinet as well now, I feel like it's been a good week for women. 50-50 cabinet. Actually, just name drop a little bit. Went to school with Bridget Phillipson. She's the year below me at school. Yeah, hi Bridget. Sure you're listening. Not too busy running the country.
I know.
Love that. Okay, so I like what you said. It sounds like tall poppy. Would you compare it to tall poppy syndrome? Because I think we have that a lot in the UK.
Yeah, it's the witch wound's more the fear, and then the tall poppy syndrome is the kind of what happens.
And I think as well, the reaction, because you've written a book about deprogramming women, you're obviously going to attract a certain brand of people who, I hesitate to use the word incels, but the trolls coming out of their caves to have a lot to say about it, I imagine.
Yeah, but I've been so heartened actually by the men that have bought the book and the men that have given me feedback and thanked me. Even my audio producer for the Audible is basically saying, thank you so much for reading this. And it's been an absolute pleasure listening, even though it was just me swearing and making loads of mistakes. But he's managed to take all this. Well, there's lots of swearing in the book, but he's managed to take out the accidental swearing out of the Audible. Oh, it was the other one. It was
I don't know fish swearing. Okay. I'm interested though. I mean, how would you, with our audience being mothers, well, typically mothers with ambition, mothers who want to have a career and still manage motherhood, what would be your advice to how they could apply that deprogramming to that journey? Because I mean, I came across one of your posts about part-time work, like owning part-time work, right? That's another thing, because you are generally very busy and you have these other priorities. So I'd love to get your advice on how mothers can really take that on board and own this motherhood, own this idea that you are busy, own this idea that you may need to work part-time. What are the thought process behind that?
It's, I think, asking for help, not trying to do everything on your own, and to those mothers who have a grown adult child in their household, to delegate more of the stuff to them, because, and I'm talking about dads, if it wasn't if you got a grown ass child.
Oh my,
I was going to say, Tiffany's got one of those, haven't you?
No, you know what? So I would say my husband does all the cooking. So it does, No, he's good.
I'm only joking.
No,
Hi, Mark.
It's not gonna listen.
But he owns it a bit. He knows. He accepts that it's not. You know what stresses me out when people say it's 50-50, I'm like, and I'm so glad my husband accepts that. He says, no, it's not 50-50. That makes me happy.
No, and it's the Gloria Steinem quote, which is decades old. It's like, women are never going to be equal at work until men are equal at home.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Obviously
true.
in a very heteronormative relationships, but
Yeah.
That is.
but it's that. There's a I don't know, but there's a charity or CIC called Equality Starts at Home.
Okay.
And they've got some really lovely blogs actually on their website about how to start to move the dial and ask for help. And it's and I don't massively like Maslow, but it's very simple. And you start at the bottom of the pyramid. You start at are you safe? Are you fed? Are your children fed? And then work your way up the pyramid and tick those boxes off, as it was.
I always think as well, like, I definitely agree on the asking for help stuff. We're all speaking to you from the Northeast, and we have a saying here that I think we've mentioned before of shy Ben's getting out. Like, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I'm very comfortable with asking or telling people to do stuff for me. But I think lowering, maybe this is an ADHD thing, Michelle, I don't know, but lowering your standards. Your home does not have to be a show home, and you can do less by not trying to do everything.
Yes.
And yes, you want your family to do more, but you should probably also do less.
Yeah. Yes.
Permission to do less.
Strategic half-assing. Decide strategically what you're going to half-ass. And be okay and be okay with that. But on the other side of things, there are other ways of asking for help that aren't necessarily direct. So I'll tell you a little tiny story. It's in the book, and it always makes me giggle telling it. So when I started dating my partner, James, he would come to my house, and we're working together. It was all very complicated. So we were working together and, so we were working together, and I would always make the cups of teas and coffees, because it was my house, and it would be weird if he just came in and started helping himself with stuff. That would be weird. So as we sort of started a relationship and then moved in together, it was a case of I was always making the cup of tea. I was literally writing this book, feeling somewhat resentful that I had to get up and make a cup of tea. Then I realized I make all the cups of teas. And I was like, okay, I am going to perform an experiment. Psychologist, with so what I just said to myself, I am going to ask, not make a big deal out of it, not show that I was feeling resentful, because it wasn't his fault.
Yeah.
I was the one that was like,
You programmed him.
Yes, I trained him to accept cups of teas from me. So for a week, I was just like, well, the first day I was like, oh, James, I'd love it if you could make me a cup of tea, please, while I finish this. And he was like, okay, got up, made it. Not a fuss. And I was like, this seemed to work. Anyway, did it for a week. Last time he gave me it, I couldn't resist laughing my head off. And he was like, what is wrong with you? I told him what I'd done. And he was like, oh, yeah. And he hadn't realized that I was making all the cups of teas now. So yeah, it's 50-50 on the tea front in our house now, without any
small wins. But yeah, I love it. Equality.
Yeah.
Equality.
Sorry, I love a pun.
And how else would you apply that to a workplace? Let's say that, for example, a woman going back to work, or just wanting to speak up more at work, or how display that confidence more.
So a lot of what this is a massive generalization, and it's me really. I used to get asked to do something, and I would always say yes, even if I was drowning. I would say yes, I can do it. I don't know whether, do you remember Catherine Tate?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
They're like, I can do that.
Yeah.
It was literally, that was me. I could do everything. And then to the point where I became so overburdened, and this is on undiagnosed ADHD as well, so overburdened with my people pleasing that I would put my child to bed and have to lie down with him to sort of pin him down to make him sleep
Yes.
for like an hour and a half every night, then get up, and instead of relaxing or watching TV, I would get my laptop out and do more work because I was so behind. And when the boy was with his dad's, I would sit and work at the weekends, and it was absolutely ridiculous. And it's all about negotiation. And how can we say not yet? No, give yourself some time to think about it. Just how do you build in decision making and problem solving time, that instead of you automatically going, yes, I can do that, just give me 5 minutes to think about it, because I'm just checking what I've got on, or when do you need it by, or literally can Bob not do it?
I like
because
that.
it's just how can you say no or not yet, or I'm sorry, I can't.
And I like that as well, because some people find it very hard to say no. And I guess practicing saying no on little things is quite helpful as well. But not making it hard no as well. Like you're saying there, can I just check what I've got on? And that breathing space just makes it a little bit easier to eventually come back with, oh, sorry, I've checked my calendar and I haven't got time to do that right now. I think...
What's more important, the stuff you've already given me or this stuff?
Yeah.
Don't, it's like push back.
You're right, back at chat.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, you have to put that mask on for yourself, in terms of that the aeroplane mask. You have to put the mask on for yourself, because if you are running on empty, you're no good to anyone. And self-care is not selfish.
Yeah, we fully agree with that.
Yeah, we've touched on that before.
It's desperately needed, and we put ourselves at the bottom of the pile so often, because this is how we're trained. We're trained to look after everybody else and totally neglect ourselves. And I don't know about you with Alex. I don't know that I'm literally burnt out until I'm burnt. I don't know I'm heading towards it until it's done.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
completely. Interoceptions, like not understanding when you're like literally done. So I make sure that school's ringing, of course.
Oh, of course.
Can I be 2 seconds? Is that all right?
You sure can, Tiffany, and I will talk.
I mean, guys, it's my ambition. It's to be expected.
I've just missed it.
Oh,
Back.
Do you want to ring them back?
Yes, I better.
This is mum life, everybody.
Give me 30 seconds.
They'll all be familiar with this. Right, we'll just mute you so they don't hear what you're saying. Right, there we go. We've got Michelle on mute. But yeah, I think absolutely the pushing back and saying no to things, I think it's like super, super insightful, because it is hard to do. I think it's easier said than done, isn't it?
Definitely. But like what Michelle was saying about buying time, by saying, let me check my schedule. And I think that would be really useful for anyone who struggles to say no. It just gives you that buffer.
And then obviously, while Michelle is just finding out if her son's okay, we've all had that phone call, haven't we? I've got nursery flashing up on my screen in capital letters so that I know that I have to interrupt any meetings. But one of the things that we will put a link to, so Michelle has got a quiz on her website, so you can kind of see how much of a good girl you are, and it'll, you can answer these questions and find out like where you sit on the scale, and I guess then follow on from there with your approach to how you undergo deprogramming. And like the book is really, really interesting. I have to say, I'm looking forward to the audio book, because I think that really helps me kind of process stuff. So I was really excited when Michelle said that she was recording the Audible. But I think for me, the kind of stuff about society programming women the way a cult does, it really was a bit of a light bulb moment for me. It's so interesting. And so once you realize, you're like, well, of course. Like, we haven't all just become crazy people pleasers by accident. And I feel like society doesn't realize necessarily that it's doing to us. It's not done with menace on the part of the people who are involved in it. It's just the whole system. whole
culture-
system.
The
Yeah.
culture, can you hear me? Oh,
Yeah, I can hear you.
I think cults are like that, though, aren't they? Really, people in cults don't know they're in cults. I've never in a cult. It's
Yeah.
always like that. Everything is always this. It creeps up on you. Even I've looked into like even having like abusive partners, people who have been abused in their relationship. It always creeps up. It's always this
Yeah.
stuff. There's a experiment actually that when you put a frog into water and you slowly boil it, you can boil it to death. But if it all depends on the temperature, right? But if you put it in hot water, it will jump out. So again, it's that how everything is slow. I see Michelle nodding, but I don't know if she's back on me.
I'm back.
Okay.
Back.
I'm back.
But she's a
Do
psychologist.
you need to rush off to school?
No, so my child has ADHD
Mhm.
and autism and dyspraxia and other things, and a lot of parents of ADHDers will probably know this, but there's a massive shortage of ADHD meds and we couldn't get him any. So he's currently, we laugh because he's 14 and a half and we can say this. We say he's raw dogging school this week. So going to school without his meds. And he is getting, the teachers and all of his classes are getting quite upset with him because he can't sit down and listen and concentrate and not fidget. And he's not a bad kid at all, but he can't, talking too much and all this sort of stuff. So just his head of year because he's had to be taken out of another class today. So
oh dear. Well, they're realizing that his medication works, aren't they?
Exactly. But yeah, it's he was due to do detention this week because of the lack of meds, and I'm like, no, you're not doing detention because this is literally not your fault. You have these medications so you can cope with how boring school is.
Yeah.
This is interesting.
I feel him. I hated school. I obviously struggled with that, but I just used to not go if I was given a detention.
Yes. So yeah, we've had that as well. So it's a constant battle.
You mind talking about that, Michelle, if you don't mind? Just how how you manage that side of your life, because I think so many people think everybody who does great things or is interesting has this perfect life. Oh look, Michelle's written this book. She must be quite, her life must be quite nice. So I'd love to explore like how you deal with that, how you manage your life, how you have the right perspective or mindset to still enjoy life and laugh, right? And find the joy in your son and the experience that you're having together.
So interestingly, I was listening to everybody about child rearing when I was a single mother. So I've already told you this, but I was going through divorce when I was pregnant. It's like, that's a normal thing to do. But anyway, I chose to be a single mother, and it was really, there's some really big pros for it actually, and there's some really big cons. So I was listening to everybody in the outside world, but I was also on maternity leave, sleeping when he slept. So this whole kind of baby keeping you up all night thing, I only had to look after me and him. So I was able to I was adapting to him, and that was fine. And so on that side of things, I think things were easier for me than a lot of women who have to sort of maintain that, how we work is a 9 to 5 office type of scenario. And obviously not everybody works 9 to 5 in offices, but I didn't have to contend with that. But still, all of that advice was not working for me, and I didn't know why. And we've had our, let's just say, we had our moments as he was growing up, being completely neurodivergent and me being completely ignorant of the fact, and me being completely neurodivergent and totally ignorant of the fact as well. So
yeah, I liked your quote about that actually. That was like, I didn't figure this out till 2020, and I just thought I was weird, and pretty much same. Just thought I was a bit out there, a bit weird.
No, and it's yes, I'm much less angry about it, but what I am angry about is not knowing how to raise a neurodivergent child until I met Shelley Farnham from Complex Connections and attending a couple of her workshops and training courses about how And this works with every human. So it's not even specifically to neurodivergent people, but the most important thing is our relationship. So it's all about connection. So until you've got a loving relationship with your children, you can't mold them into anybody else, because fear and punishment does not work, especially if your child's got this thing called pathological demand avoidance. And that's basically, if you tell him to do something, he won't.
Right.
I'm shaking my head. He won't. It's like, he won't. If you ask him, or you engage him, or you compete with him to do things, or you sell the benefits of doing the thing, he'd be like, yeah, fine. And you know what's really hilarious? That is my mum, and that is me as well.
I'm sort of recognizing that a little bit, that like sometimes I'm just like, no, not gonna do that. No, I won't do that because you've told me to.
Yeah. And it's that kind of, almost, that's like the passive aggressive, like inner sort of teenager rises when someone says, you have to do this. I'm like, no, don't. You can't make me. But yeah, it's instead of parenting like that power over, it's that alongside and power with, and
You said a connection before correction.
connection before correction.
And I think that you're right, that does work for all children, and you know, any relationships that you want to have, to be honest, as well. But like, actually, if you make an effort to connect with people, they are far more likely to be amenable to what you're asking them to do than if you just bark orders at them.
Yeah. And I think that works with the book as well. So I'm not literally hitting people over the head with this book saying this is what you have to do, because I know if I was reading a book and be like, that was me sticking my middle finger up for those people who listen.
We don't allow such things on this podcast, Michelle.
No flipping the bird, even though only we can see.
But no, yeah, there's so many demands on our time, effort, and energy and money that we just have to be more, you know, it's the people, isn't it, that are around us that we should be investing in, and the way that we were brought up, and grandparents, etc., was the way that they were brought up, and it didn't produce happy, healthy humans.
No, it didn't, did it?
No.
I've got a final question, and it might be a bit of a biggie, but like, how do we get the men on board? Because that feels like the kind of next step. Like, you deprogram the women, and then, like, even though they obviously then people want to change things, but we've got to get men on board to act as allies as well, to like actually care that women are doing so much more at home, or that unpaid labor in the office.
Yeah. And I think it's like with anything, you've got those early adopters that are curious, but it's not about pointing fingers and blaming, because let's face it, men are conditioned too. And the conditioning for them is, you know, can be deadly.
Yeah.
It's obviously the biggest cause of death for males under 45 is suicide. So that is, you know, there's probably a lot
that not all's well, isn't it?
No, like there's a problem. And it's not all about, you know, it's all your fault. It's the connection before correction thing, and inviting them in and making them curious and wanting to learn. And I saw this a lot with the Black Lives Matter stuff. And I know it would, if I went to somebody and said, you have to educate me, I know that's really irritating, but there has to be some give and take as well. You know, here are some resources, here are some books to read, here are some things you can try. Here's like the first, and it's that first step. It takes the most energy. If they, you know, that whole, it's almost like the reverse of Sheryl Sandberg's lean in. We do not need to lean in.
We need to lean out.
They need to lean. The men need to lean in. And we're not gonna catch everybody, but there will be a tipping point of people who care about being nice humans that we can entice over with cups of tea.
If you're lucky.
Yeah,
That they've made.
that they've made. You bring me one too.
I love that. Yeah, but that's yeah. My final question was, it was going to be like a big question, but I will switch it around. I was going to say, what would be your advice for women who maybe want to find out more, or
You're allowed to say read the book.
You can do the quiz.
no, right, read the book,
Free
read the book, read the book. No, you have to read the book. But actually, I was going to switch around and say, what would your advice to be to your younger self? If you could look back on your younger self and speak to her, what would you say? Because I think that's a great teaching point also for the women listening to this who now need to go on this journey.
There's two things. So one, get rid of the guilt and shame. If you can get your hands on Brené Brown stuff.
Yes, I was about to say that.
That's that one. And number two is, what other people think of you is none of your business.
Oh, I love that one. That's like the motto I live by.
Yeah. It's like, embrace your weird.
Wow, that is beautiful. I think we need to end it there because I don't think we can have any mic drop moments. Should we all drop our mics?
No, it's really
Talk
expensive.
about £80 or something. Yeah.
Oh, I got reconditioned, so mine's good, but not that good.
I've got a broken one in the corner, so yeah, let's not break another microphone.
But yeah, thank you so much, Michelle. I think that's been amazing. I think we'll put loads of links up so people can get in touch with you as well. And I was just thinking there we should start the Bad Girls Book Club and some of the books that you were on about there. I think that'd be quite nice.
I like that.
Yeah. So
sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, where can people find you? Can you let the audience know where they can find you?
So I'm one of 3 women I know with my name on the planet.
Okay.
2 of us in Newcastle randomly. So I hang out on LinkedIn the most. I have other platforms, but it's not me. Because people are mean on the other platforms.
Tiffany's laughing at that because she loves LinkedIn.
Yes, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn.
Yeah, I love LinkedIn. Oh God, yeah.
So that's where I'll mostly be hanging out. So come and find me.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope things calm down at school and you get some medication from somewhere.
We've got like 2 weeks left before the summer holidays, and we all can't wait.
Yeah, but I hope you're hoping the shortage is overcome by then, potentially.
Writing to my MP today, it's on my list.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It really has. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bye guys. Thank you. See you later.